All right, let's get this started. See, looking through the agenda, status updates. Does somebody have anything here?
I can throw in at least the status of the Windows CI stuff. One of the runners was failing for the last couple of days on pack, or maybe less than that. But David had reached out, and I think we got it sorted out. There's a PR that it still is going to require a little bit more looking into because there's a test that seems to be consistently failing now around network. So I think David's going to go in and recreate the runner. If that still doesn't fix it, then we'll keep looking at it. But for now, the fix was just to comment out a test. But once that's merged, the pipeline should be back up and running. I had only tagged David in there to review the PR. But yeah, I can.
Yeah, I think it's my understanding that that got merged in this morning so that it could enable the release of pack, which I'll go into here in a bit.
Oh, perfect. I totally missed that. Excellent. It's all sorted then. Thank you.
Cool. I think I could kind of lead into my status update. So I have two going into the pack release. So pack 016.0 that was released maybe 30 minutes ago or something like that. So that is out. It fixes a lot of issues related to Buildpack URIs. So, which funny enough, Cora had just gotten into our Slack, reporting an issue, and we're like, oh, we just released it here, and it's fixed, right? So that worked out fairly well as far as timing goes. So that is out there. Outside of that, I've been focusing on Tecton. I've got the Tecton integrations test working. So this right now enables us to test the Tecton tasks that we have in the catalog with kind, GKE and OpenShift. OpenShift definitely being the more, the most different platform, I guess I should say. And so that has a couple little additional changes necessary there, and probably would want to be more focused on the testing around OpenShift, since that seems to have a pretty good number of user base. Let's see. I think that's pretty much it. I know right now I'm focusing on setting up some GitHub actions for testing or automating a lot of these testings across different platforms. There'll be a couple hurdles there, so I'll probably spend a week or so. And then the other thing is taking the Tecton issues and kind of migrating them over into our repository and kind of considering our repository like the development repository for the tasks as opposed to the catalog itself. So I think that'll help us organize a lot of the efforts there. That's it for me. Anybody else? Status updates?
Yeah, sure. So I guess this might be something that we want to jump into a little bit later on in this meeting, but I've been working off and on for a little while on this dive tool and trying to get it to a place where we can start pushing features to it so that it'll help us be able to like visualize or explore builders and app images, etc. that we produce. And kind of, I guess this is like ended up being a pretty large amount of work. So I guess we could talk about what the next steps are and where we think things should go. I think yeah, and I can throw that on the agenda here as well.
Awesome. Yeah, that'd be great. Cool. All right, last call for any status updates. Sounds good. Moving on. So we talked about the release planning. Pack 016.0 is out. And so we'll start our next iteration for 017.0. There's a milestone been created there already. And so there's a couple issues already tagged to that. So we'll keep an eye on that one. All right, next we have a standing item for needs discussions of pack. I think for the purpose of this meeting, I just want to kind of set this as a checkpoint where we could look at any discussions needed to see if it triggers anything that we should be talking about in this meeting. Otherwise, those conversations could be done within the issue itself or through RFCs, if that's what is necessary. Anything on the discussion needed that needs to be talked about today? All right, not hearing anything. So moving on to Dive PR. You want to walk us through that a little bit, David?
Dan.
Sorry, Dan.
You're good.
It starts with a D.
We're actually almost the same person. So, yeah, sure. So I think, did I link that? So anyways, this is something that's been kind of going on for a little while. Originally kind of showed some people on the VMware team that I work with, like a little hacked up version of this that would let you walk through only the things you'd care about on an app image. Like you just don't really care about all of the layers in the base. So you really just want to look at what Buildpacks are contributing. The kind of problem is that this PR aims to solve was that almost all of the UI components were not reusable, right? So this has been like an effort to move to something that's a little bit more flexible and could eventually be a place where we just like put code for examining these images. And it would make it like applicable to both the open source projects and any other like proprietary platforms as well that everyone's using. But kind of like the breakpoint is at a certain point, this will be equivalent to what is currently implemented in Dive with different reusable UI components. Should the trajectory then be to just push changes directly into Dive that we want, or like add something into Pack that uses these things, right?
So if I were to think about this in phases, right? We're saying that this PR is necessary in order for Pack to reuse a lot of the logic that Dive has in order to provide that same functionality that Dive does, but with a Buildpack specific, notion around it. Is that right? That's like phase one.
Yeah.
And then I think, if we talked about it earlier, the other phase, or maybe the, like a side goal, right, is to enable Dive to be able to be like extensible in a way where it could have information from third parties such as Buildpacks and be able to display that information. Is that correct? Okay. So that would be like a phase two, or again, maybe a side quest. Cool.
Yeah.
Do you have any cool demos? Like it sounds cool. Like I use Dive all the time, but I haven't heard of this. That sounds.
Do you have the Dive demo to show? Not at hand.
Live demo.
I'd have to dig.
Yeah, exactly.
Just compile it right now. Let's see what happens.
It'll totally work.
I could give something next week pretty easily around this.
Yeah, I'm just curious what we're building at, or what you're building, because it sounds cool, but I just haven't been able to visualize what that's going to look like. So
yeah.
I'd love to see it too. +1.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so I guess I kind of wanted to bring this up to get a little bit of feedback on where the like direction that we want to get to. Like this fork in the road is like the first thing we want to do, like pull this stuff into Pack and use it, or because I think that probably it'd be pretty easy to get changes accepted that would let us visualize our images more easily just in this tool. So
I guess what's the status of this PR? I see that this has been open since October. Yeah. And there's obviously still a lot of traction to it, but do you have a sense of whether this will be accepted, what a timeline looks like, and what the level of effort remaining is?
Yeah. So I mean, I've talked with this guy, Andrew Goodman, a bit, and he seems very receptive to this as like something that he needs to do to like change his UI libraries because they're no longer supported. So that's good. The level of effort left is I'd say I feel like I'm at the 90% point, right? Where the last couple things are around coloring and some initial configuration that you can set up in these dive config files. There's like a couple things left. So it's close to being equivalent with what exists right now and probably could be in the next week, like done. Yeah.
Cool. So seems like we're really, really close to that. So I think it'd be nice to have or get past that checkpoint or that milestone, and then maybe have the discussions of how to proceed from that point.
Okay. Yeah.
Cool. Anything else on that discussion? We look forward to the demo though. Now it's been brought up to the floor. Yeah. All right. Moving on, GitHub Action Runner planning.
I threw this one on there, and what you had mentioned earlier, Javier, about supporting the other platforms and stuff. I was kind of wondering what your thoughts are on how that's going to roll out. As this will be like we'd have like OpenShift Runner, or how does that?
Yeah, right. How does that work? So like I said, OpenShift is probably the most difficult one. It works on most CIs with no problem. GKE, very similar with Terraform. You could stand up and tear down GKE instances pretty easily. The OpenShift, that one right now, at least the way I have it set up, is using something called code ready containers, right? And so it's essentially like the full-fledged VM that then runs OpenShift, and it's like essentially like easy to set up, right? And it works really well for local development. I don't know how feasible that is to get it in a CI environment. The installation time, startup time, and all that is like crazy. It's like 30 minutes or something like that. So there is something called I forgot, like mini shift, I believe is what it is. And I haven't looked too deep into it, but my hope is it's a lot like a Minikube, where it's a very bared down version of OpenShift, and it still provides a lot of the same functionality in which it can be tested. So that's probably going to be my effort in that GitHub action. It's like exploring a more lightweight version of that. If I'm not able to do that, then obviously I'd have to look for alternatives. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I was because David and I were talking this morning about what to do for Windows, if it's worthwhile to just having, I guess, more data points to think of how all the runners will be laid out helps us think about what we want to do for Windows. We're still kind of stuck in the LCOW tests of having a bespoke runner that's Windows 10 with WSL2 or whatever turned on. But we potentially could finally switch over to the default GitHub Actions runner for Windows for WCal, and just kind of knowing how many and what type of custom runners we're going to have out there is useful to think about.
Yeah, I think my personal take would be to try to minimize as much as possible how many runners we have. Because ultimately at the end of the day, as we see right now with WCal, right, like the maintenance overhead or burden is, it would be nice to kind of offload that to somebody else, right? In this case, GitHub. So
yeah. And we've been using the Windows runners a lot on other projects, and they seem really nice, and they're not as fast as the like packet bare metal ones, but the state management's really nice for them. The debugging, it's not great to not be able to like hop on and debug it, but you can make a VM that's very similar to it pretty easily. And we put some of the docs in. It's actually already in the Pack Wiki on how to make a VM that's similar to the Windows runner.
Are you using resources that they provide? I know they have a couple Packer configs for different runners?
These ones are bare metal, or not bare metal. They're just plain old templated GCP VMs or Azure VMs. We did both flavors, and then some like probably 30 lines of PowerShell to run on each one to make it ready to run Pack. So nothing too sophisticated, and I think all that could be automated if we wanted to go to a Packer image or something. But so far, it's pretty boring. We had also, and we mentioned about like Kubernetes testing is interesting too. I did figure out recently that you can run a container on a Kubernetes that exposes the Docker socket over TCP and use that as a Docker daemon if you wanted. You have to do some things to make it secure, but so there's a few different like creative ways that you can avoid having to make a custom VM. There's some like pretty close to already templated VMs that are out there.
Right. Yeah.
But,
No, I totally, I can see that. And yeah, I think if our stance or at least guiding principle is to minimize runners, I think that would be beneficial because again, if we start creating runners, I think we could end up in a really bad state where it takes a lot more effort to manage than it's worth.
Yeah. And to throw another hand grenade in there, how about ARM support? Is that we're gonna need n times ARM runners out there?
Is GitHub not providing one of those runners?
As far as I could tell, the bin format, like the fun trick where you can build ARM images on a or x86 machine, I think that only works for Docker desktop. But potentially you could just have one custom runner that runs Docker desktop and use that for stuff. But I think obviously there's bigger pieces to the ARM puzzle to solve besides that, so I don't want to throw that off too much.
Yeah. Let's hold off on that grenade here for a little bit and wait till we get a little bit more focus on that ARM. Even though I believe this is totally like on the side, but the leadership team, core team, I guess, is looking to create a roadmap for this year. I do have a feeling that ARM is going to be on there, just given how prevalent it's been in the ecosystem.
I ordered a Mac M1 for my personal use, not for VMware use. So I might set it up, and if anyone wants to have access to it or just play around with it, feel free to ping.
That'd be nice. Cool. All right. I know we're just having like open conversation at this point. Anything else?
Sorry.
Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, I'll see you all online. Have a wonderful Wednesday. There you go. All right. See y'all.